Hey everyone, Braiden here with Tactical Cowboy. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how I like to go about and paint our rifles. So if you look at this thing, it's nice and scratched up. I went along with some rough sandpaper. It doesn't matter really what grit you're looking for, it's just we really want to sand this thing down. Why do we want to sand it down? Well, we want the paint to stick to all these different parts. Different materials, the paint's going to stick differently, and we want the paint to last as long as possible. Ideally, we can have this paint for a long time. I had another rifle I'll show you here in a sec that I have had for years now, had it painted, and it's been awesome. There's only a few wear marks on there where you can really tell the paint's wore off over time. But so a couple things that I went and did to prep beforehand as I went along, and I sanded this entire thing, right? I got a magazine in there so that way we're not getting any paint in the mag well. Places that I taped off, there's gonna be a bunch of different places. Every rifle is gonna be a little bit different, whatever you wanna tape off, but any lights, you're gonna wanna make sure the lens is taped off. The muzzle, you're gonna wanna make sure that's taped off, not getting any paint in there. If you want to, you could even just, say you wanted the muzzle painted, you could go ahead, stuff some paper towels down in there, stuff whatever you can to keep the paint from getting inside the actual barrel, and just paint the tip, or sorry, tape off the tip, and then that's going to allow you to get all around that muzzle, so that could be consideration. For this one, we're just gonna go ahead, tape off the muzzle right here, painted the lens on the light. For this, it has scope caps or lens caps on here, so I'm just gonna leave those lens caps on. The back of this one is clear, so I'm just gonna tape that one up right there. But other than that, I make sure the stock is collapsed. This is gonna be a little bit different. So this only has two positions. So for this one, to make sure that you can still close it after you're done, I'm gonna go ahead and close it all the way. For my rifle, I actually went and I adjusted it to where I normally have it, and then I painted the buffer tube right to there. And then that's how I ended up doing it. Some guns, I've made sure that it's taped along the trigger right here, that little hole. Any open spots, I just like to go ahead and make sure it's painted and closed off. You don't want any of the functioning parts to be inhibited by the paint. So went along, did that, and now we're gonna get into the actual base coat. So let's go over here real quick and let's talk about the different paint we have, and I'll show you that other rifle that I painted in the past. All right guys, so here we are. I got a bunch of different materials laid out along with that rifle I was telling you guys about. So I got my rifle right here that I went ahead and painted. Notice with a rifle like this, you have a lot more things to tape off, all right? So you have both sides of the optic you're gonna need to tape off. If you guys have a magnifier, you guys are gonna need to tape that off. Any sort of rubber buttons I like to tape off, and then also I like to tape off the butt stock right here where my cheek goes. Depending on what kind of butt stock you have, that can wipe off on your face, and you're gonna end up having a lot of range days where you end up with a bunch of paint on your face if you don't paint off where your face sits. So I went ahead and did that. You can see some of the different wear marks, but I've had this for a long time and the paint's held up perfectly. I mean, I'll probably get a new barrel here soon and then repaint this thing, but it's done its job for the most part, and you can always change it to whatever environment you're going to. But that's what the end product is going to end up looking similar to. As for materials, I got my sandpaper right here, 60 grit sandpaper, and then also it has 60-80 grit. So right here, got that sandpaper, a little bit more rough to make some deep cuts into the finish right there. We got a mesh bag. You can also use sniper veil or something like that. That's going to give us our design that we're going for. I got some paracord. You'll see where that comes into play. We're going to end up wrapping it around the rifle to get a nice little design. Really randomize it to make it look like the environment. Got some masking tape, and then I got the paint laid out here in order that we're going to end up using it. So earthy colors first. I got my tans and browns here first. That's what we're going to use for the base layer. All right, I'm always going to start off with tan. Tan is our primary color because you look around, there's tan everywhere. So if you go ahead and show all that, all the base layer in nature is going to end up being tans and browns. So that's what we're going to be going with here. Next, we got our greens. That's going to end up looking like all the vegetation out there. Your environment is going to end up dictating whether you use more tans or more greens. Here we got a mix of both, and then we also travel around a lot, so we're gonna be doing a blend of the two. But I'm gonna end up using tans, then browns, and then greens, and then black, and finally for this one I'm going to be doing a clear coat just to help it last a little bit longer. We use these things all the time. If you guys are using this for any real serious work, I'd be careful using the clear coat because it can get a little bit reflective, a little bit shiny, but you'll see the end product once we're done. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, add the first coat of tan to this, and then we'll show you guys once it's all dried. Let's talk about what type of paint you guys are gonna get. You guys need to make sure that you guys are getting flat, ultra flat, or matte paint. All right, ideally you're gonna have the flat paint. That's going to be the flattest non-reflective color that you can get. So this ultra flat is going to be kind of what you're getting right here. This is the Rust-Oleum camouflage. Or for the matte paint, I got clear right here, or you can order some flat clear coat as well. So make sure you guys are getting non-satin, non-glossy, that type of paint. Otherwise you are going to have a very reflective gun, and that is not what we want. We want our end product to be as non-reflective as possible. All right, guys. So I want to add a quick note here. So while we're going and spray painting this, notice how I am not doing real thick coats right off the bat. This is to prevent it from dripping and then creating any weird smudges that I don't want. So I'm just keeping it far enough away, making sure I'm not building up too much paint in one area. And then I'm going to go over this a second time and get another coat over of just tan. But starting off with just tan here. As I'm going across this, notice you're wanting to get the bottoms of the rifle as well. So on the bottom, the top, you need to make sure you get all those spots as well. Hit it from a bunch of different angles. Let that sit for a minute and get a second coat on there. Yeah, so we made a little bit of progress here. Going ahead, adding the base coat. Notice that I added a little bit of brown here for the base coat. We'll add a little bit more brown once we add the mesh to the equation here. But right now what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and I am wrapping some paracord. This is going to give us a nice little design and make sure that some of the tans and browns are still left after we add the greens and blacks. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead, go around this with a bit more paracord, add some more pieces, and you're going to see it here in a sec once all the paracord is added. And then we'll go ahead and add some mesh over this and then start to paint the greens and the blacks. All right, guys, so now we got a nice little spider web made up on this thing. Paracord going in all sorts of different directions. That's exactly what we want. Nothing in nature is symmetrical and perfect, so we want our rifle, when we are adding all these different elements to it, to not be symmetrical and perfect. That's why I like to do a bunch of random blotches and lines, and it's gonna give us a really cool effect at the end of this. So now I'm gonna go ahead, add the mesh over this, and we're gonna start adding the greens and the black. All right. All right, making sure the mesh is laid out evenly. Now let's start to add some of these different greens and different colors. There we go. So now I'm giving it a pretty generous coat around everything. We're gonna have to take this mesh off a few times and just check we're getting the desired effect we're going for here. So let this dry real quick and then we'll take it off, check it out, see the effect, and then we'll move on to the next color. All right guys, so I just peeled back the mesh here. Looks like we're starting to get that effect that we're going for. I'm gonna move the mesh around a little bit and I'm gonna add that darker green to this. So let's just cover this back up. It's already gonna be in a different position when we cover it back up from where it was before. So just make sure it's a nice flat so we get the desired effect that we're going for. Let's add this darker green to this. All right, let this sit for a sec and we'll check it out. All right, so we just got two colors on here. You can already start to see that effect pop there. So as we're looking, you can see that the brown is starting to disappear, so we'll end up adding another brown layer here in a sec, along with the black. At the end, if there's not enough tan, we can add some more tan, but then I like to re-go over it with some green, just because if you add the tan after the fact, it's really gonna pop and it's gonna be extremely bright. But this is looking pretty good so far, so let's cover it up and get some brown and then some black on this. Don't want to add a ton of brown, but we'll add a little bit. And then while we're at it, let's shake up some black, and I like to not use too much. You can really go overboard with the black, so I'd like to add just a little bit. Notice I'm going in all different directions. I'm not just spraying in one direction or one spot. Now let's go ahead, let that dry just a sec. It's real hot out here, so it's nice. It dries out really fast. Let that dry for just a sec. Go ahead, peel it back, check it out. Boom, right there. Now we're starting to get that effect that we're looking for. All right, so I'm feeling pretty good with this right here. Now we're gonna need to get some different angles. So I wasn't able to get the tip of the barrel too well. So we're gonna go ahead, get the tip of the barrel real fast, going over with the greens and all those different colors we did. And then we'll flip it over and do the same thing. Make sure to hit all those different angles so you're getting in all the cracks. And that darker green. Now let's add that black. All right, let that dry for just a sec. Let's peel it off. Right there. Now let's hit this other side. Start with the barrel this time. Add some black. All right. See how it looks, take a little peek at it. Nice. All right, so that looks just perfect. That's how we're wanting it to look. Don't want it to be exactly covering the entire thing. We want it to be really uneven. It's gonna give us the effect that we're looking for as soon as we take this off. So I'm gonna let this dry out for just a sec, and then we'll peel the paracord off and see how it looks. Boom. What do we think? Looking good? All right, guys. So we have the almost finished rifle. There are a couple spots that I want to hit up on, add a little bit more of a pattern. So these spots that ended up not as defined with a lot of the mesh outline, I'm going to add a tiny bit of tan and then fill it in along with some browns and some darker colors. As well as right here, I'm going to add some more greens right there. But other than that, we're almost done. So I'm just going to hit that right back real quick, and then we'll show you that finished product here in a second. And black. All right, so went over and then just added some more tan, some greens and some black real quick, and then got a little more pattern in there. Now let's go ahead and do it to the bottom where it's just pretty much straight tan, and add some green. So adding some green and just a couple black stripes. Boom, right there, covering a lot of it up. And now I'm gonna look over one last time, make sure I'm good with it. I actually think I might add a little bit more tan right here. And then after that, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the clear coat and we'll be done. All right, guys, we got our finished product here. Look at this. We got our rifle all spray painted, got the clear coat on now. Not too much to note on the clear coat. You guys are just gonna paint it just the same as everything else. Make sure you take the paracord off, make sure you take off that mesh, and then you guys are gonna go over with just a nice light coat all over. Make sure that you're covering the whole thing though. You don't wanna miss any areas and then not have that clear coat if you are gonna use it on any specific areas. But yeah, here it is. Looks nice and camouflage. If we look at it against our background here, looks pretty dang good. Turned out pretty dang good. You guys can get creative with the patterns. You guys can use natural vegetation, whatever you guys want to use to get that end result, depending on whatever type of environment you guys are going to be using your rifle in. But this is what we went with, a little bit of tan showing, and then a lot of green and black, because that's the environment that we're in right now. But leave your comments down below what you guys think, what you hate about it, what you love about it, and then if you guys try this out, let us know how it goes. Have a good one.